Thank you, Senator Renfro. And while I respect, obviously, your right to do this, this is the same proposal that you lost in committee yesterday. And, I came to a different place on this, and I came to a place where my belief is that fundamentally the truly chronically ill, and I'll give an example of this, in that I have a friend whose 70-year-old mother has enormously chronic pain through degenerative arthritis through a hip and a knee. And she was describing how she's faced with that really bad decision of choosing to take lots of opiates to effectively deal with that chronic pain. And, at 70 years old, she wants a different path. So the first thing she did is very quietly and gingerly go and ask and go into a dispensary to say, do you have any literature? Because I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. I've heard a lot of my friends are getting benefit from this, similar to a former city councilwoman who I've spent a lot of time with on the same thing, Kathy Donahue. But they have all used the dispensary as a place to first go in and get educated and then ultimately to get a treatment of how it is that it works. And most of these older patients have been then able to try this through tincture or through some other type of thing of just smoking and getting high, and they claim that these tinctures and ointments are able to give them relief for their arthritis or their chronic pain without the THC head high effect. And so what you would be doing is which I think is candidly one of the biggest underserved area in this area, is older patients with real chronic illness, pain. They would have no option under the caregiver model to effectively find the type of care that they're currently getting in the dispensary. You and I both agree on one issue of, do you really truly like the kind of retail, Wild West, stimulate demand dispensaries? I actually agree with you. That's not my vision of this. I think the wellness model that's going to serve that very, very pain-inflicted woman at 70 years old is for her to get the type of care from a dispensary or now a medical marijuana center that will allow her to get first literature. At some point, she is not ready to do this yet, but at some point she'll go get a doctor's referral, and then she'll return to that dispensary to try different types of products for the treatment of her pain. So I came to a conclusion different than many other people, that I really believe long-term the regulated medical marijuana center is really clearly the place for the chronically ill to get treated. And I believe that the proverbial toothpaste is out of the tube. And at this point, your amendment would be a takings of an enormous amount of people who've now tried to provide care. And while I'm more than happy to regulate them back to the intent of Amendment 20, for us to try to disband it statewide without the ability of each local community making a decision what works for their chronically ill is a huge mistake, and I just ask for a no vote. I respect it, but I think each community is going to make this decision on what's right for their own citizens.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Romer, listen to what you just said. You basically talked against your bill, and then you talked against the amendment, and then you talked for your bill. This amendment is going forward with the intent of the voters. I got a copy of the Blue Book from 2000 right here. Let me read the last line of the first paragraph of the description. Distribution of marijuana will still be illegal in Colorado. Doesn't get any simpler than that. That's pretty plain language. It is still will be illegal in Colorado. And what are we doing with this bill? We're legalizing it. Explain how you're getting around that with this bill to me. If you can explain that to me, then I would love to know the answer to explaining that sentence of the Blue Book analysis. And we could even go to what the actual language within Amendment 20 is and explain that. It's clear that the amendment talks about a caregiver relationship, and it doesn't talk about dispensaries. And let's make another point very valid and clear with this. This amendment does not ban, was it your grandmother? The grandmother in the example you gave, from going to a caregiver, having that personal relationship, and getting the care and treatment that they are seeking. What this amendment does is it takes care of constitutionally eliminating the dispensary that would be for retail use only, and that would be the only way they would have a relationship with the patient, because that's clearly not what Amendment 20 stood for, and this would get us back in line with what our Constitution is.
Senator Foster.
You'll make that point. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't support this amendment. Learning about the uses for medical marijuana, I have found that physicians that I respect greatly have found that it really does help their patients. Going through chemotherapy, for instance, it helps with the nauseousness. It helps with the pain, with people that have crippling diseases. It helps with that pain. So to just come right out and say that you really think that it's just an illegal, yes, as a recreational use it is, but there are some very, very good products of marijuana. That's number one. Number two, so if I understand your amendment, a caregiver could be in any home, and there could be trafficking. People could be going hither and thar, between wherever they wanted, and say, well, that's my caregiver, and I'm getting my medical marijuana prescription from this person, my caregiver, at this particular address. And it really wouldn't matter how many homes, how many caregivers. And can you imagine the community, the neighborhoods, with everyone saying, well, no, I'm a caregiver, and that person's coming in to get their daily supply. And where are they getting this supply from? So it really, if we really want a Wild West kind of an atmosphere, that's how I envision your amendment. I'm sorry. Unless it's different than that, I just don't understand. She's my caregiver, and I'm going to her house, and she lives in Cherry Hills, and he's my caregiver, and he lives in Denver, and I'm going to his house, and we've got everybody going to homes in neighborhoods to receive their marijuana, and how it got to their homes, we don't know.
Senator Romer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Renfro, we went through this with great detail when we provided the sheriffs their opportunity to shop their bill with a 5-patient cap. And frankly, the most cogent argument that everybody finally came around to, we're now, as Senator Spence mentioned this morning, and we're already at 82,000. We're probably going to minimum level out at 100,000 patients for now. If you put the 5-patient cap back in and you effectively get rid of the dispensaries, then effectively you're asking for 20,000 grow operations in every neighborhood in Colorado. And when we looked at that and looked at the home security risk, the ability that caregivers would have to meet up on the equivalent of kind of Match.com without any knowledge as to who this person was, that we just felt that there wasn't an ability to truly meet the demand, the true demand that was there for those who have cancer, multiple sclerosis, chronic pain from arthritis, those people who are desperate to use this for Crohn's. And so there is a sophistication. I spoke to that wonderful Republican homeschooling born-again Christian mom who is providing incredible care, including palliative care to death. And I just couldn't get comfortable that she could provide that type of quality care in an environment where they met on a web and are in somebody's home. So with all due respect, I don't think we want grow operations in 20,000 neighborhoods in our community. I think you truly want to stay with the intent of Amendment 20, and I also truly believe this bill will regulate the knuckleheads out of the business and will actually return exactly to the intent of Amendment 20, which is what I decided and why I chose to run this bill. Because I truly believe with the regulatory environment we provide, we're returning to the intent with the guardrails. And I, with all due respect, blue books are not law. Blue books are not the definitive statement. Blue books are an interpretation of staff of statements made by proponents and opponents. They are not the matter of law. That's why we're elected to make these laws. And there's been a lot of debate about what the voters intended in Amendment 20. And in almost most communities in Colorado, each individual community is going to get to decide for themselves whether or not they want the question of medical marijuana centers, which is why I like the bill that Senator Spence and I have now spent 5 months negotiating.
Senator Renfro.